Should I start there?
I think so. I mean, it's 7:32, and people can join in, and they'll rewind if they need to see the beginning.
Well, Jan asked me some questions, and struggling to get her head around dinner. Dinner's always been a meat protein, which anchored the dinner with some supporting vegetable sides and a salad. But what replaces that now is the anchor, and it is a different mindset. We have to get away from our old eating habits in a lot of ways. And the thing is, there's protein in everything we eat. All the fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes have some portion of the macronutrients: fat, carbohydrates, and protein. It's all in there. So that's why we don't need just a standalone meat addition that encompasses the plate. Now with that, so you're thinking more like stir fries, or you're thinking more like stews or soups.
Potatoes with toppings.
Potatoes with toppings. Dishes that are things that are all combined, not here is one thing and the vegetables are on the side. It's a mishmash of everything together. Think of like a casserole. There have been, when we first started converting over, there was a recipe for what we call eat loaf, or which is a beans and lentil.
Well, there's two. There's the eat loaf that's from Grandpa's Eat Loaf. That's from the engine too.
There's one called eat loaf, and the one that we use is called no food loaf, which came from Drina Burton. If you Google no food loaf, Drina Burton, this loaf comes out a lot like meatloaf, and the fact that enough like it that I wish we found it earlier, because it would have helped us make that transition when we were still looking at things as the traditional way. Here's mashed potatoes on the side, maybe some green beans, a salad, and something that's meat-like. We've gotten totally away from that, and it's more about the whole meal in itself. So you do have to think of it a little differently, and think of it as a combination of things. Then there was sauteing vegetables with water or broth. It doesn't brown them, rather it steams them. There is a trick there, and it's a trick of the trade. And I think I mentioned it. I might have mentioned it last time, or maybe I'm thinking of another conversation I had. The trick to browning onions without oil or whatever veggies in a pan is, first you have to get the pan hot. And you can't add too much liquid, because that will do exactly what you said. It steams them instead of browns them. It does cook them and soften them, but what you're aching for is that caramelization of the onions to add more flavor. So what you do is you heat up the pan, get it nice and hot, then you put in your mirepoix, your celery, your onions, your mushrooms, whatever you're cooking to start with, and you constantly stir them. And they'll start browning pretty rapidly, or at least they'll start cooking pretty rapidly, and you have to keep them moving because they will brown pretty quickly. If things start sticking to the bottom of the pan, you're just going to put a splash of some sort of liquid to loosen them up. You don't want it to drown in them, because then, yes, you're defeating the purpose. You're cooking them through steaming or drowning them or boiling them, basically. And it's our dog Kaya. She's over here bothering me.
Come here, honey. Come here.
So that's sort of the trick. And for that little splash of something, it's not unlike if you were doing it in oil. They talk about deglazing the pan, where you'll take a little wine or a little something to loosen up all those dark caramely great bits in the bottom of the pan. That's sort of what you're doing, but when you do a dry saute like this, you're adding just a little bit of liquid from time to time if it's getting too dry and it's starting sticking to the bottom of the pan. You can also, a little trick I've learned recently, is take a pinch of baking soda and just sprinkle it on the onions. And what that does is that lowers the pH of the onion to help it caramelize that much quicker and easier. So that's another trick you can add there. Bread and crackers. Yeah, we never discussed that. And somebody asked, is Are they okay as long as they have ingredients that are on the plant-based diet? And that's absolutely true. One of our favorites brands is Mary Gone Crackers. That's the name of the brand. And they have 4 or 5 varieties. We go with the original. A couple of their newer varieties have oil or some odd things in them, but their original and their seeded version, if you look at the label, it's just a bunch of seeds and some other things, and they're totally yummy. They have a great crunch. We use them in hummus a lot, so that gives you that crunch. Since starting to eat this food way, I've been feeling a greater need for crunch in our foods which need to be chewed more. I've talked loosely with people about this before. I think what people miss sometimes with eating this way is not so much that they're missing the meat, they're missing the chew, that texture thing. And there's different ways you can get around that. One of the things that we use that gives a little chew to a dish is tempeh. Tempeh is a fermented soybean product that it also has a tendency to absorb whatever flavor sauce you put it in, which is nice, sort of like tofu does that. The other thing we've done, especially lately, is we take extra firm tofu, I'll slice it into cubes, and I'll bake it. And that baking dries it out even more. And if you dehydrate it enough in the oven, like I'll put it on the oven and just keep warm for like two hours, and it'll dry it out to the texture of chicken. And so that adds a nice chew to things like wraps, sandwiches, things you might want to put that in, or even just a stir fry. We put it in stir fry, and sometimes we'll coat it in different spices we like.
You can bake chickpeas, and you can just get like croutons.
If you want a crunch, Sherry's just telling me you could bake chickpeas, and they sort of dry out and have a real nice crunch and a real nice sort of flavor. They're great in soups. Garbanzo beans, chickpeas, out of the can. And since they're out of the can, they're wet. They also will, if you want to toss them with some spices, it'll adhere to it well, and you can even spice them and then cook them. So that baking, that adds a nice, really crouton-like thing for soups.
People like air pop popcorn.
The other thing is seitan, which is, if gluten is not an issue for you, they're selling store-bought seitan now, which is very good. Or you can make your own. It's not unlike making bread. So if you've been familiar with making bread, it's actually easier because it takes no time. You mix up this dough, because gluten comes from flour, so it's adding liquid, and you can use different flavored liquids to add flavor along with spices, and you mash this up, and then you boil this thing, and it becomes like this chewy, textured meat-like substance, and it's totally okay for you. There's nothing wrong with it unless you're gluten intolerant. So that's something to add.
Mushrooms.
Some of that. Mushrooms, sauteed mushrooms. My favorite mushroom right now is shiitake mushrooms. They're very chewy. They're very healthy for you. They're what we call adaptogenic mushrooms, or medicinal mushrooms, which actually give your body a lot of nutrients depending on what your body needs. But what's nice about the shiitake is they don't have a lot of moisture in them. So you can really cook the heck out of them. You can marinate the heck out of them. They won't fall apart. And they're just very chewy, great texture with things. Sherry mentioned air pop popcorn, if you happen to have like an air pop popper. Let's see. Has anyone found a particular vegetable broth they like? That is a trial and error thing. You try different vegetable broths and see which ones you do like. Some people use a vegetable base, which we have used. It's concentrated, and you add water to it so you can control it. The problem with the vegetable base a lot of times is it has a lot of sodium in it. Sherry, I don't know if we have that bouillon vegetable base. So it's very concentrated. Now, if sodium's not an issue, this might be a way to go. The other thing we do, since we've started cooking a lot of vegetables, we save the scraps, we save the ends off the onions, we save maybe cast off pieces of celery, some of these different pieces, and we put them in a freezer Ziploc bag. And when we get a full bag of all these vegetable scraps, Sherry or I will make vegetable stock. And that way you can put more flavor into it. You can cook it longer. You can reduce it to a richer consistency. So that's real beneficial. And adding mushrooms to that helps to make what they call a more umami flavor, a more richer, savory flavor. So making homemade stock, if you have the time or effort or will, saves you money, because vegetable stock is a few dollars a box, where you can make a whole pot out of scraps for nothing but a little bit of water and time and effort. So that's something to consider. You know, you're halfway through the challenge. Hopefully you're seeing some changes, hopefully mostly good. Typically around day 3, 4, people start feeling a little bloated or sluggish or whatever. And what's actually happening is your gut biome is changing. There's different bacteria that live in your gut, and new ones are growing and old ones are dying off, and you're making quite the change. So there's a whole group of them dying off and these new ones growing. So you may feel a little bloated, but within a day or so, that should totally go away. And hopefully you'll find a little renewed vigor, a little more energy. In fact, this person says that she does feel less hungry and feel like she's eating less and in between meals. And hunger between meals has diminished, but it's not gone. I think everything takes time, but here's the thing: if you're hungry, as long as it's for the, you know, as long as it follows the guidelines, you're welcome to eat it. And like I've said before, Sherry and I always have like roasted potatoes, little small potatoes that we've roasted, that I'll have it like in the afternoon in case I get hangry and need something to carry me through till dinner. Especially, we met a gentleman today. We had to give a presentation at Turning Stone Casino to a state conference of PE teachers, and dance teachers, and health teachers. And this one guy, poor guy, lives in Poughkeepsie, but teaches in the Bronx. And every day he's making that trip, and finds it hard sometimes. You know, by the time he gets home, it's 8 o'clock at night. And so he definitely needs some things in the car just to be able to munch on, and we gave him some suggestions like that. You know, it's so easy on the go stuff. You know, and we've done that too. When we're on the go, we'll make a wrap with hummus and sliced peppers and onions and spinach. And the wrap, you can roll it up nice, put it in a container, and eat it. And it's great on the go, on the road. You know, those kinds of things that you can eat very easily are very handy. Let me see. Any other questions? No questions here. We have 3 people on board, which is better than none. Hello, Renee. Thanks for signing on. So I'm trying to think of things. Hopefully, you've been trying new recipes and finding some. We don't have a lot of people on our Facebook group, which is totally fine. But we do have resources there. You can always reach out to us at Eat Plants Love for recipes, or we can point you in the correct direction for that. We're going to be holding another challenge in January. You can either email us about it. It's called the Good Life Challenge. And we're doing it for a bunch of school districts and businesses up here. It's going to be 75 businesses and school districts up in the Finger Lakes upstate region. And we're going to be doing it for 10 days starting January 7th and going to the 16th. And we'll be doing these Facebook Live sessions again. We'll also be YouTube Live sessions again. And daily emails, similar to what you've been receiving. And right now we have 1,400 people signed up for this. It looks like we will probably end up going over 2,000 people. And so with that number, we're saying the more the merrier, come on board. We're calling it, I might have said, the Good Life Challenge. There's a Facebook group that we opened up today called the Good Life Challenge, which will be another contact point. So if this is something you're continuing or want more support, that is a good place to go. The other place is always our Facebook group, Eat Plants Love, which is an ongoing thing, and that's where we have tons of files that we have posted, and we're constantly sharing recipes and resources. So those are some resources there. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that either myself or somebody has shared. Jan had mentioned that her husband has lost some weight, but she hasn't budged yet. That happens sometimes, especially the males have a tendency to lose weight quicker than the females. I lost 60 pretty easily. Sherry lost 30, but she feels she has more to go. And you know, it's that darn that male thing, you know, and I joke, but not really. I think the nature has a way of keeping the weight on women. It's sort of protecting the baby making system, you know, that they have to maintain the system in case of famine. Because it does seem, for some reason, and nobody can really answer me on that, you know, no doctors or whatever, why is it that men lose weight so quick and women struggle more than men, typically. So so there is that. The only thing I can say is keep plugging away, and you should start seeing effects. Keep drinking water as well. If you're eating a lot of nuts and pastas and breads, for Sherry, if she has a lot of pasta and bread, that seems to stop her weight loss dead in its tracks. But as long as she keeps to whole food vegetables, she does well. So it's some of those higher calorie dense things that just have a tendency to nip some of that in the bud. So you may just want to take a look at that, and you know, what is that ratio? Is your whole plate filled with pasta? If that's the case at every meal, that could be something easily doing, halting that loss. Where if you're having a huge salad and
cup of pasta,
not even a cup of pasta, and a bunch of beans and this and that, then you should be right on task and be heading in the right direction.
Fill half your plate with greens if you're trying to lose weight.
Sherry's telling me, fill half your plate with greens if you're trying to lose weight, and try to have those dark leafy greens at every meal. It's key for physical health, and actually the weight loss is a side effect of this way of eating. You're healing your body from within, so sometimes you feel it more than see it on the outside. But we've seen people who say, you know, people have been complimenting me on my skin, and it's all because they're getting the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. And I sort of laugh when I see vitamin creams, and you know, they say vitamin E or vitamin this or vitamin that. Well, that's in all these fruits and vegetables. You know, the reason they put it in in these creams is because it is good for us. But if you're taking these fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes, you're getting it on the inside, not just topically. And so, of course, it's going to improve your skin. In fact, there was a cream I looked at the other day, and it said plant stem cells was in this cream for anti-aging or something. And I sort of thought that was interesting. I must be eating plant stem cells. But you see some people that have been plant-based for a long time, from say, you know, from their 30s on, and they look like they're defying age. And I think that has a lot to do with what they eat. Oh, that's great. And thank you, Renee. You know what, Sherry and I are foodies. We love food. If this food was not enticing, interesting, enjoyable, we couldn't keep eating it. We love to explore different cultures in their food, their spices, their what they do to things, especially because other cultures have been cooking with vegetables, not just having it as a side, but it's been the main course. It's been it's what their whole, they know how to mix and blend. And you know, it's just like a real good salad. When you've had a good salad, it's not because the lettuce is good or just these sliced peppers. It's because everything all together combines to this mash of flavors that you say, that was a good salad. And there's been salads Sherry has put together, especially in the summer, with sliced beets and carrots and peppers and things that, you know, literally I just feel like I'm sucking down all these vitamins and minerals. I feel myself almost slurping this salad down. It's just so yummy. And that gave me a point I was just thinking that I wanted to talk about, and it had to do with...
Can't read your mind.
I know you can't. You do pretty well, though. I was talking about the vegetables and darn it, I lost that thought.
Well, basically, if you use the spices that you used to like with meat and just use it on vegetables, then you'll be fine.
Somebody asked me today about, finding recipes that they like. And, I don't like such and such, whatever the spice might be. And we tell people, don't use that spice. If you know you don't like it, don't, recipes, I say, are a guideline. Outside of baking, which is very specific, that you need certain, literally balance of things to make something come out baked correctly. Cooking is different in the fact that, for instance, Sherry doesn't like cilantro, and people either love it or hate it. Well, we don't have cilantro in our house, but we'll use chopped parsley. Anytime it says cilantro, we use chopped parsley. Why? Because it has a similar taste, but and texture and color, and adds the dish the same look, but it doesn't have that cilantro taste that Sherry doesn't like. Simple translation. Or somebody else might not like smoked paprika in a recipe. So don't put smoked paprika. We met a guy today, I don't like oregano. Then don't put oregano in. I mean, it's that simple. You know what you like, so that's what you should use. And think of the recipes as a guideline and a suggestion. And that way, especially if you start getting into doing a lot of your own cooking, if you're not used to it, you start experimenting yourself a little bit more. Well, I liked this in this recipe, maybe I'll try a little bit in this. We had a tomato soup recipe that we tried the other day, and I really didn't like it. And there was another soup recipe that we did like, and we looked at the differences, and one of them was basil. The one we liked had a lot of basil in it. So we went and put in some more basil, and that made a world of difference. So it's just finding those spices and herbs that you like and using those. And if you know, hey, I don't like Mexican food, well, you're not going to make that buffalo chicken wing enchilada thing, because that's something that you don't like, that kind of flavoring, so don't. Or Asian stir fry, some people don't like the flavor of soy sauce.
The buffalo chicken.
Well, buffalo fake chicken. Yes, maybe it was a bad analogy, but I know what I was thinking, which was there's substitutes for chicken, and typically it's baked tofu and in a nice buffalo chicken wing sauce type thing.
Mm-hmm. Buffalo wing sauce.
Buffalo wing sauce. No other questions, and we're down up and back, down to 2 and 3. So I think we're losing things. I'm glad those that have found this have found it enjoyable. We do enjoy this.
We'll have another YouTube after Thanksgiving.
We have one other YouTube after Thanksgiving. It'll be sort of a conclusion thing.
Sunday at 7:30.
Sunday at 7:30. Sherry's reminding me. A week from Sunday. At 7:30, we'll send out a Facebook message. We'll send it out in our newsletter post, and it's going to be sort of where do you go from here is sort of going to be the title of that one. And we'll remind you again, if you want to join our new challenge in January, you're more than welcome. And have a great weekend.